having to deal with situations in his life that he did not expect to happen? Things can change. You can, in a split second, change. There are things in our lives that we must learn how to deal with. Tonight's title, Homicide Knocking, told by Michael Linsey. Well, hello, Michael Linsey. How are you doing today? Okay, I'll start it again.
You're an uplifting human being. I'm doing well. I'm not as cheerful as you, but you lifted my spirits right there.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to catch you off guard.
It's all good, but you did.
Okay. Mike, I know today that we're going to have some conversations. Some are going to be a little touching and all that. But before we get really into the heart of what this interview for us at this time is about, we know you have a lot going on. Could you possibly tell us a little bit about where you come from and some of the things you've done?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I think that you have to actually go back a long way. And I was raised in a poor family, 7 kids or 5 kids and 2 parents in it was a 2-bedroom home that they turned into a 4-bedroom home. And father was an abusive my natural father died. My stepfather was an abusive alcoholic who tried hard, but he'd been abused. So that's important to understand because parent loss is a multi-generational problem in my family. So my great-grandfather was murdered in an armed robbery in Leadville. So my grandfather lost his father. I lost my father, and ultimately my grandson would lose his mother. So we've had this multi-generational pattern of loss in our family, trying to deal with it. So I grew up, I got in a fair amount of trouble, ended up in the Marine Corps, went to Vietnam, joined the Marine Corps at 17, went to Vietnam at 18, turned 19 in country, was commanding 6 other Marines on a big artillery piece when I was 19 years old. Came home before I was 20, got out of the Marine Corps just at 20. And then I wandered around for 10 years, seeking to find some purpose and meaning after what I'd gone through in Vietnam. Because as hard as growing up in that family was, there was no comparison to Vietnam.
Wait, excuse me, if I may interrupt. I'm trying to get clarity. You said the home environment was worse than Vietnam. Is that what you're saying?
Nope, it's the other way around.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to get that straight.
Vietnam was if you haven't been to war, it's hard to explain, but nothing is going to affect you like war does.
Okay.
When I got back, I started looking for something meaningful to do. I had a job a year, 2 jobs a year, moved all over, went to 6 different universities. And then I found a career working with violent offenders. And I understood violence, raised with it, fought with it, understood its effects on people, I understood it. The sad part of this whole journey for me is that somehow, despite the fact that I was training police officers and therapists and judges and lawyers about how to handle violent offenders, somehow one of those violent offenders got into my life with my daughter. And that was a whole different thing. And so I tried to be a dad to my daughter and manage this situation. But what happened was I trusted the system. I trusted that the system would handle this guy. So I did the best I could do. My daughter asked me to support her. She wanted to try to reconcile with this guy. I wasn't wanting her to reconcile with the guy, that they had separated after he had beat her. I had a conversation with him. He promised me he'd leave my daughter alone. 2 weeks later, he ends up murdering my daughter.
You're saying that your daughter was in a domestic relationship,
Yes.
which a lot of people are, and she had been beaten and she got away. And then I don't understand that myself, being that I come from a family with domestic violence. What makes that woman trust or go back? Could you touch on anything that may have wanted her to go back?
Well, I think people don't understand that some of those relationships are just unbelievably horrendous, and the woman's trapped there out of fear. And sometimes the person she's in love. She loves the guy, and maybe 80% of the time, 90% of the time, I don't know, a big chunk of the time, he's okay. And they're working on things. And then along comes something, whatever that something is, and the guy proceeds to start using fists and feet to make a point. Get control, keep control, punish, take out their anger on somebody, or they're drunk. And in this case, this guy was a combination thereof of an angry man and a drunk. So she actually went back to him, and then she separated from him again. And I left that piece off because I haven't told this story in a while. So then she left, but when she left the second time, she didn't tell me. I didn't know that she had separated, and I didn't know that things had escalated again. I believe that she and my ex-wife and my mother, the three of them, didn't tell me because they were afraid of what I would do. And I would have gone down there and I would have intervened in a number of ways had somebody told me that this thing had escalated again. I didn't know that until I received a call at 8 o'clock in the morning from my mother. And at that point, it was too late because my daughter had been shot dead, and my grandson, who I adopted, became later on had been shot. So he shot my ex-wife, severely injured her, shot my daughter, killed her, and one of the bullets went through my daughter and hit my 2-year-old grandson and severely injured him.
Wait, this is serious. I mean, this is. I wasn't a, when I met you and talked to you and heard about this, and we were going to talk. I just really thought your daughter and what you're going to tell us. I did not know that in this one incident, your grandson, your wife, and your daughter was all involved in this shooting. Man, and your daughter passed. Your grandson, was he okay?
He almost died again not from just a gunshot wound, but he developed a massive infection. He was in Children's Hospital for a long time, almost died from that, from the infection. And he's fine now. He has a learning disability from the injury, but he overcame it.
Amen.
He overcame it. He's doing well. My ex-wife died some almost 30 years later. She had been severely injured, and the injury caved away one night in the brain. The scar tissue and all of that ruptured somehow, and so that bullet took almost 3 decades to kill her.
So 8 o'clock, you get this news, this terrible news. Okay, pick us up from that.
I get the call at 8 in the morning. My daughter's been shot. So I get in the car, drive to Colorado Springs to finally get into the hospital where my grandson is, because he's in ICU and they're stabilizing him.
Mm.
So I go in and he's got tubes running in him everywhere. So I spent the next several days just holding him in the ICU. And then the legal processes, of which there were numerous, all of a sudden I've got social services has custody of my grandson. The legal system has custody of the shooter, Eric. And I'm getting calls from 2 gazillion places. And so can't work, obviously, because I've got this injured 2-year-old that I'm holding. Have to go to these meetings with social services. Long process, they put me in the line to get custody of my grandson. So I got temporary custody. Then I had to go through the process of getting permanent custody. So all of that's going on. So there's this barrage. I'm not working, I have no money. So I'm going through savings, borrowing money on my house. Eventually lost everything because I wasn't able to work. I hadn't planned on inheriting a 2-year-old, an injured 2-year-old on top of which. Got a lot of support from the community, a lot of support from my friends. Eventually I was able to go back to work and rebuild my career, but it was never the same. And quite frankly, I had to eventually quit working with violent offenders because it got to the point where I didn't have any patience for it. And so it wasn't healthy for me and it wasn't healthy for them.
So when you say you didn't have patience, would that be because resentment or anger, or
Oh,
what
I
do
was
you?
angry.
You were angry, and
Still am.
I can feel you, man. And when you have those kind of feelings, and maybe this might, I don't know if you really want to answer this, but from my experience and what you're saying, it's like it would drive you to want to kill.
Absolutely.
I mean, literally kill.
Absolutely.
So you get back together, you start working again, pick us up from there.
Well, I tried to work with violent offenders for several years afterwards. I really tried to work through it, thinking that I had the skill set and I could save lives. But I became it became too personal, and I started trying to save too many lives. I began to feel responsible for everybody and everything. And so I actually developed a thing that I had to overcome called repetition compulsion, where I started trying to save everybody and everything, trying to get a different outcome, which is not a healthy approach to trauma. You can't do that. You can't find a way to heal trauma that way. I finally quit. I moved to Florida. I ended up working for them. Yeah, I'm laughing. It's because it's crazy, but I ended up working for the Miami Police Department as a non-sworn specialist. And I created the Threats Management Intervention Unit with the City of Miami Police Department.
Okay.
And so now I'm not a therapist, but now I've set up systems where I'm actually working with police officers to hunt down, track down dangerous people and taking them off the street. So now I've got a full bore war going on. It's me against all the criminals and crazy people in Miami, some of which who turned out to be police officers.
Real.
So I found out about some corrupt police things that were going on, and I went after them because I had a compulsion. I couldn't leave anything alone. If I saw a dangerous situation in a gas station, which I did, in my apartment, which I did, on the street corner, which I did, I'd get involved. And it was a miracle that I wasn't shot and killed, because I got myself involved in some, let's just say, high-risk situations because I couldn't leave things alone.
You say you couldn't leave things alone. Do you feel that, like seeing somebody being abused or seeing somebody taken advantage of like that. That just hit a certain spot in you that you didn't care no more. You didn't care. They had a gun, whatever they're doing. Mike's coming to the rescue.
Correct. And if you were at risk, and it could be any number of risks, I would try to save you. You know, whatever it took, whatever it took. I was involved in some episodes where it wasn't going to go well for me if it went south. And finally, one day it did go south, and I ended up getting pistol whipped, and I got 10 plates in my head from being pistol whipped. I think one of the things I would like people to understand is that once violence comes into a person's life, whether you're a battered woman, a rape victim, an assault victim on the street, a homicide survivor, once that enters your life and impacts you, it's a transformational process. It's only a question of how big a transformation. I was a combat Marine, so I had this attitude that I could handle stuff, right? Felt compelled to handle stuff. I still feel compelled to be involved. As you know, I'm trying to organize a thing called KTIP, Communities Allied to End Preventable Deaths. It's just that I'm not, at this point, putting myself out in the street at the pointy end of the spear, more of an intellectual organizing kind of a process. And that's an important point when you talk about recovery from this, is identify how it's affected you, think about what you're going to do to recover, and find some purpose and meaning, and continue living.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you not only faced a tragedy like that once of your immediate family, but again,
Stepdaughter.
Your stepdaughter. Could you talk a little bit about that, please?
Well, Chrissy was a brilliant, beautiful young woman. And she had her demons, like we all do. And, but a really vibrant, interesting person. And she moved with her mother far away. The mother remarried, and I stepped back. And one day, Chrissy, and that stepping back is an important point that I'll come back to. Chrissy was at a little card game one day, just playing cards with some people that she'd played cards with forever, having a nice time, nobody bothering anybody. And this woman comes in because she's sort of attached to one of the other people in the card game. And this woman is crazy. So she punches Chrissy in the face. So Chrissy says, "I'm out of here." Gets up and tries to leave, gets out into the street, and the woman runs out, gets in her car, and runs Chrissy over.
Wait. She just walks in the party, punches her. Chrissy's leaving, trying to go about her own business. And the woman get in her car and literally run her over.
Killed her. And this woman was out on bail. She had killed her husband. She had just killed her husband and slashed some woman's face with a razor. Now, why this crazy, dangerous, violent person's out on bail is a mystery. However, again, the man who killed my daughter, it turns out, I find out later, that he was a parolee from out of state, and he had put a knife to a baby's throat in another state. So the system in 2 states, in 2 situations, failed my family. Neither of those people should have been on the street, neither of them. Okay, but there they were, and they entered my family's life. Should never have happened. This is some of the driving force in me about, okay, we can't trust the system to do this correctly, so we as a community need to begin to think about this.
Okay, Mike. You're not talking like vigilantes type stuff, right? I mean, but sort of, kind of. Sound like we the community, that means we need to take charge of some of this stuff ourselves. That's what it
Yes.
sounds like.
Well, now that's as you go. Now we go back. We'll do the time machine, and I'll go back.
Okay.
Back when my daughter is first murdered, I'm too busy to think about anything. I've got this injured kid. I've got court dates. I've got economic problems. I got issues. So I'm not thinking. I'm just every day trying to handle stuff. Once I get it all kind of handled and things are coming back together and I'm functioning in a more stable way, quite frankly, I was as homicidal as you can get. Frankly,
I hear you.
If another person had messed with my family again at that point in time, there wouldn't have been, oh, we'll let the system handle it, because I was not going to let another person get killed. That was it. So, but at a point, I had to choose. I had to choose to be a vigilante and violent, or I had to choose to try to do something constructive. For a while, that was a daily choice. How will I behave today? But after a while, as I continued to work on it, spiritually, therapeutically, professionally, I'm engaged with raising this 2-year-old. I began to build a life. Now, here was the big turning point. And this is just me, because every survivor has to find their own path. There's no single path here. For me, the turning point was when I accepted one thing, that every single thing that I would have, do, experience, and accomplish was the result of my daughter's death, and that I would have to accept the good and bad of that, because there was good things, there was enjoyment, there was pleasure, there was hope. She's dead, but the things that came to me, good things that came to me, all came to me because my life got changed and I got diverted because of my daughter's death. So once I realized and accepted that that's okay, it's all right. I have a right to go on living, and that I didn't need to take my anger out on the world, but I needed to do something. The whole homicidal side diminished and declined. Now,
So,
frankly,
wait,
if somebody hurts my family again, I'm not making any promises, but I'm not going to do anything proactively.
but I think I have that. I think I have that point very clear, and I understand that. So, but what I wanted to ask you, this homicidal maniac that was contained in that vessel,
Yes.
that how did you turn that around to be helpful to other people, to get, I did hear you mention that anger is not all the way gone. There's something that is not going to go away.
Correct.
I mean, that's a void that will not be filled.
Correct.
And yet you handle these, what can I call them? These tragic moments where you're not like bitter, you're not like trying to go after people, but you're being real about the system. And we know how many times people are walking around that need to be locked up. I mean, violent people. And you are getting ready to get started into some of the things that you do to counteract those kind of feelings and emotions. And some of the organizations that you're putting together, and what your goal is at this time, going through all of that, you want to have an organization to do what now?
Communities allied to end preventable deaths, homicide, suicide, and drug overdose deaths. Because we have the ability to save people's lives, and I mean we, collectively we. What we don't have is the political will to do the hard work, people are willing to virtue signal and, say the right things and put on a show. But to really make this change, it's going to take some hard work. Systems are going to have to change their behavior. Okay, the education system's got to stop failing kids and making excuses. The criminal justice system needs to start working in a more humane way, one individual at a time. Criminals are not all the same. Violent offenders are not all the same. Okay, each individual situation, each person, we need to take a far more individualized approach to this. Okay, and we need to save it, especially youngsters, especially young people. We need to save as many as we can by putting the resources into education and real opportunity, not fake opportunity, because we've got a lot of fake opportunity out there, trust me.
Oh, yeah.
And start lifting people up. And as we find those folks who are so damaged and so injured and so broken that they're too dangerous, well, we can put them in a humane place, okay, out of society. Prisons don't need to be some hellhole, okay? I'm really trying to organize to do serious, and I mean serious, deep system change, because you look at what's going on. Do you know that over 240,000 African-American youngsters, mostly youngsters, well, I'm old man, so if you're 35 or 40, you're kind of a youngster to me. I know that's not true, but feels that way. 240,000 plus or minus a few African Americans have been murdered in the last 30 years. Another 130 or 140 have gone to prison behind that. So we're talking about taking almost 400,000 people, a whole city of people off the street. Okay, that's about something. That's about something going on in our society. Now, take that number and double it, you get the Hispanics and the Caucasians. That's just homicide. Suicide and drug overdose deaths were into equally big numbers. So hope, where's the despair? Where's the anger? Where's the absolute sense of disconnection coming from in this society that people are dying at this rate in these ways? We have to really begin to go back and evaluate our society at its core. And I don't mean repeating the same politically correct narratives. I mean taking a deep look and see if we can find out what's really going on.
Right.
I developed this commitment. I started working on this 8 years ago. And I couldn't believe that for 8 years, we've been letting tens of thousands of people die. No matter how many times I'd bring it up, people go, well, that's kind of how it is. Finally, people are really working hard to put an end to this. And there's some hope coming. And we need to work closely together across cities, across counties.
Well, that's
what H.O.T is.
That's kind of, I like that. That's kind of how you and I met, discussing that and how I could be a part of that and how we can kind of start getting the message out that we need to come together as a community, not look at trying to change the world, but we can start changing things right in our community, our city, our neighborhoods. There's things that we can do. And there is a lot of people who have lost hope. There are people that talk about, we look at suicide as like maybe an instant thing. But as I look at a lot of young people, and I say young people as well, a lot of them seem like they have no more hope. It seems like they may not take a gun and end it right now, but the way they're living, the way they're going, you're just killing yourself slowly. You just don't have enough, courage to change your life or just go on and say, I'm done. And to have someone there when you're dealing with violence and the fears and what you mentioned earlier, like with your daughter, it could have been she loved him. It could have been she was scared. You can have a lot of different reasons for why a person allow themselves to be kept in a bondage like that or in a situation like that. And I believe this group that you're starting, I want to help you be a part of it. I want to see how we can get this momentum going. And I believe there's a meeting coming up on Thursday. Was that July 18th?
Yes. This particular meeting is a invitation only meeting just because we're trying to build a core group. And then we're going to build out from a core group to a bigger group, which will become more and more of an open communication across county lines. So that eventually the people up in Cripple Creek, Colorado, because I'm working with the people in Cripple Creek. Okay, they've got a problem not dissimilar to except that they're poor and they don't have any resources. I know people think they're not, but they are. There's a lot of poor rural people in this country that don't have access to the things that people in the big city have. Now, they don't have some of the problems that the big city people have with drive-by shootings and things and gang shootings, but they've got meth and they've got drug deaths and they've got poverty and they've got lack of education and lack of opportunity. We want our kids to have a decent education. We want them to have safe communities. We want them to have access to all kinds of opportunities. Okay, so you talk about people coming here seeking opportunity. Our people are seeking opportunity. So let's really begin to look at getting the resources to where they need to go. We have pockets of poverty, pockets of poverty. Chicago, one weekend in Chicago, 100 people shot, 17 dead and 83 wounded. Why? That's craziness.
These people in these situations that have no hope. And they feed them drugs and fear and all of that kind of stuff. But Mike, I am thankful that I have an invitation to that meeting on Thursday, and I'll be there. What I would like, out of everything that you have experienced through these violent deaths, if someone was in that situation, is there any advice or anything that you could give them when their heart is just torn apart and homicide and murder is all in their mind and everything you're looking at, you start to hate? Can you explain how you got over that or give someone some advice?
Sure. I give you the exact phrase. If you're out there and you're either at risk of being a victim or you're at risk of choosing to be an offender, there's a phrase, isolation kills. Do not isolate. If you're a victim, don't isolate. If you're thinking about doing violence, don't isolate. Because when you isolate and you're alone with this, bad things are going to happen. You go to a church, you go to a therapy, you go to an emergency room, and you tell people, this is where I am and this is what's happening, and you get help. But the worst thing you can do, the absolute worst thing you can do, is isolate and try to handle all of this on your own. It will end badly, period. Isolation kills. I'm gonna make me a big old t-shirt and that's what it's gonna say. Isolation kills. I wanna share one more thing with you.
No, you can share all you need, my brother.
You and I had a great political discussion from opposite ends of the political spectrum to a degree. Not really.
No, to a degree.
To a degree, because we're not at those far ends of that continuum.
Okay.
But that's what needs to happen. Is people who have disagreements need to be able to sit down and say, not about personalities, but about policies. Let's gather facts. Let's gather information. Let's find out what we're really dealing with. Let's get past all of these political talking points that are thrown around. All these politically correct ideas, whatever they are, left, right, doesn't matter. Each side's got their little talking points, right? Yada, yada, yada. Let's find out what's really going on and let's attack the problem, not the person, the problem. We just saw what happens when somebody decides to attack the person and not the problem. More importantly, let's us get together, you and me, your 10 friends, my 10 friends, have some nachos, some Cokes, some beers, whatever, We can solve it. We can. You and I can find a way. I promise you it's possible.
I know we can, my brother, my Republican brother. But you want to put it all like that. There are people that don't want to see people healed. They don't want to see you grow. They don't want to see you prosper. So when we sit down and have this conversation, I'm really looking forward to meeting with you again on Thursday, Mike. I really do want to thank you for taking this time out and sharing this. And I also want to invite you to come back again, because I know you have a lot of other stuff that you would like, that I would like for you to share. Could you
I'll be happy to do that. And one of the things we're going to share is the solutions that you and I and the others come up with.
Let's do that, because I'm looking forward for that meeting. I'll be there. But my brother, I thank you and God bless you.
God bless you too. Be safe.
All right.
Be safe.
Well, another episode of Where Were You? And we would like to thank our guests for this evening. Also want to thank New Me. New Me helps sponsor Where Were You? So go on and check it out. New Me /Arkway. Also, go on and hit that like. Go on and hit subscribe. Go on and hit that share. Go on and leave a comment. And if you find anyone that has a story, let me know. And hey, you bless someone today.